2024 marks a special anniversary in the history of Sheffield Wednesday Football Club. On September 2nd, Hillsborough Stadium celebrates its 125th birthday. Our iconic ground has created history for generations of supporters over the seasons, from our famous 2023 playoff semi-final comeback to Wednesday becoming back-to-back champions of England twice and FA Cup winners in 1907 and 1935. Hillsborough forms a unique bond with our past, a connection that is increasingly rare in the footballing world.
In 1899, Sheffield Wednesday, then known as the Wednesday, faced their first period of uncertainty as a professional club. The loss of their beloved Olive Grove ground, whose lease was not renewed, threw the club into turmoil. This instability extended to their on-field performances, leading to their first ever relegation.
To make matters worse, Wednesday's local rivals, Sheffield United, were surging ahead. They had become English League champions in just their 9th season and were the reigning FA Cup holders.
Relocating Wednesday away from the established football supporting districts of the city was a big gamble. Had it failed, it could have threatened the club's very existence.
To lead the club's resurgence on the pitch, Ambrose Langley was appointed as the new captain for the 1899 to 1900 season, becoming the first club captain of Hillsborough. Previous captain Jack Earp was honoured in leading Wednesday for their opening fixture, a 5-1 victory over Chesterfield. From that point on, Langley captained Wednesday for 4 successive seasons, his leadership instrumental in taking the club to the top of English football by winning the Football League.
During 6 seasons at Olive Grove, Langley had established himself as a loyal clubman and was a member of the 1896 FA Cup winning team. He was a broad-shouldered 6-foot defender who was loved by the Wednesday supporters, but was a nemesis to the opposing players and fans. Despite his physical style, Langley was a friendly giant and colourful character who always supported his teammates and was never afraid to put his body on the line for his team. His strong play on the field was met with an equally strong sense of humour off it.
When you read match reports of that time and you see photographs of him, you just know exactly the kind of player that Langley was. He was physical, he was brave, he was uncompromisingly tough in the tackle. We may have all grown up in a different era and never witnessed him play, but we all know of a player that fits into the mould of Ambrose Langley and respect them for it.
Langley was considered one of the best fullbacks of his day, and if not for a persistent knee injury, Aston Villa, the era's greatest side, would have signed him. However, his physicality was not admired by the amateur purists of the England Selection Committee, meaning that his only international honour came in the form of an appearance for the English League against the Scottish League in 1898.
What I love about players like Langley is that he was born at a time when working class boys could aspire to be professional footballers. When he turned 15, professionalism was legalised, giving Langley and his peers a chance to earn a living playing football, rather than being forced to the same working class jobs as their parents.
Langley was instrumental in setting up his own junior football team, and along with his fellow professionals in the late Victorian era, in shaping the game into the one we recognise today.
What is easy to forget is that football during Langley's era was as spectacular for the supporters back then as it is today. By the 1890s, the game was one that we recognise today, 11 against 11 for 90 minutes, the same size pitch, goals and ball. Big FA Cup fixtures attracted crowds of over 20,000 in Sheffield. Grounds were outdoor theatres where crowds went to be entertained and had the same lust and desires for winning as we do today. Langley loved to play up to these crowds and wasn't afraid to enrage opposing supporters during away games.
No one hated Ambrose Langley more than the Sunderland fans, leading to occasional violent outcomes inside and outside both Newcastle Road and Roker Park. The most famous incident occurred in a crucial 1903 fixture when Wednesday and Sunderland were vying for the league title. Wednesday won 1-0, with Langley once again the pantomime villain with several rough challenges. A mob formed outside Roker Park with rocks and bricks waiting for Langley to exit. He smuggled out of the back, but his absence failed to pacify the Sunderland supporters, who pelted the Wednesday players' wagonette, forcing the players to take cover.
When the Wednesday players finally reached their hotel that night, they were greeted by a smiling Ambrose Langley, seated by an open fire, eating hot buttered muffins.
Wednesday's victory over Sunderland proved crucial, with Langley's men eventually winning the tightest title race to date by a single point over Sunderland and Villa. Langley had successfully guided Wednesday to become champions of England in his 4th season as captain, a feat that had seemed unachievable at their former Olive Grove ground.
Langley's time at Wednesday was drawing to a close, and the captaincy was passed to my great-granddad Tommy Crawshaw. Tommy led the club to a second successive league title, and the club's second FA Cup triumph 4 years later. The quarter-final tie at Hillsborough that year against Liverpool attracted a crowd of 38,000, proving that Wednesday's gamble in moving the club out of the centre of Sheffield had paid off, both on and off the pitch.
Langley had a great sense of humour. Looking back on his time at the club, he humorously complained about the introduction of hot meals on the train for away fixtures the season after he left, claiming they waited for him to go.
Last year, I visited Ambrose's grave. After much searching, I discovered his headstone must have fallen and been removed. Wednesday's first club captain of Hillsborough, and the man who led them from a relegation to the champions of England within 4 seasons, needs to have a fitting memorial. On Hillsborough's 125th anniversary, we'd like to bring the Sheffield Wednesday family together in remembering one of their forgotten heroes by raising money to buy him a new headstone.
In 1905, Langley was appointed the first league manager of Hull City and enjoyed a successful 7 years in charge. It was rumoured he once rode across the Humber to beat a rival manager to a player's signature. Langley would return to Sheffield Wednesday in 1913 as Arthur Dickinson's assistant secretary and temporary trainer during World War I. In 1919, he became the manager of Huddersfield Town, gaining promotion to the First Division and reaching the FA Cup final in the same year.
My favourite Langley story is from the eve of the 1896 FA Cup final. His roommate that night was my great-great-uncle Fred Spikesley. They were both from Lincolnshire and had first met when they were both 16 years old. Langley was nursing his reoccurring knee injury and was a doubt for the match. Rumours had spread that if it rained, he wouldn't play, and if you weren't in the 11, you didn't get a medal, regardless of the outcome of the match. Spikesley desperately wanted Langley to play, and neither of them slept much that night, checking the weather through the hotel window all night long.
Well, it didn't rain, and both men gave match-winning performances and brought the FA Cup to Yorkshire for the very first time.
After retiring from football, like many players of the day, Langley became a publican and became the licensee of the Pheasant Pub, which still stands today in the shadow of Bramall Lane. He died in Sheffield Hospital in 1937 and was buried at Burngrave Cemetery.
I used to go in the Pheasant Pub on London Road in the 70s, and I was always confused why a pub so close to Bramall Lane was frequented by so many Wednesdayites, usually in the 70s and 80s, right up to the 90s. But of course it all made sense when I discovered that it was Langley's ex-pub, and some of those older men had not only seen Langley as the publican of the pub, they'd actually seen him play, both him and my great-granddad Tommy play.
Representing Sheffield Wednesday's past players at Langley's funeral were Fred Spikesley and Tommy Crawshaw. It's really special for me and Tom to know that they were both there to say goodbye to the great man.
Both Clive and myself are spearheading the campaign to buy Ambrose a new headstone. Now, what better time to remember the first club captain at Hillsborough than during Hillsborough's 125th anniversary year? Ambrose Langley takes us back to that very first season at the ground, and that brings together the whole Sheffield Wednesday family, players past and present, today's supporters and their ancestors. Please support us by donating towards a new headstone for a great Wednesday man who deserves to be remembered.